Instructor Draven believed in practical education. Theory was useless without application, and his xenobiology students needed to understand that the galaxy was filled with species that could kill them before they finished analyzing their first cellular sample. Today, he announced to the packed lecture hall, you will learn the proper protocol for encountering hostile Vraxian juveniles in an unsecured environment. He pressed the release mechanism. The reinforced doors at the back of the hall slid open, and 5 Vraxian cubs bounded into the room with predatory grace. Their training collars kept them from causing actual harm. But everything else, the snarls, the extended spines, the displays of aggression, was completely genuine. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Students screamed, scrambling over desks toward the exits. Data pads clattered to the floor. One Centaurian cadet actually fainted, his multi-jointed legs folding beneath him. Draven allowed himself a thin smile. Fear was an excellent teacher. The cubs prowled between the aisles, their claws clicking against the polished floor, herding the panicked students into. A hand rose from the third row. Calm, steady, utterly out of place amid the chaos. Dr. Riley Martinez sat in her seat, her other hand taking notes on her data pad, as if nothing unusual was happening. She didn't look panicked. She didn't even look concerned. The nearest cub, a young male named Gorith, approached her position with a threatening growl that would have sent most beings running. His fangs were fully visible, his spine ridges sharp enough to cut through steel. Riley glanced up from her notes. Gorith, sit. The cub froze mid-snarl. His threatening posture melted into confusion, then something that looked almost like embarrassment. Slowly, almost sheepishly, he lowered himself into a sitting position beside her desk. The lecture hall went silent. Riley's hand remained raised, but now she addressed Draven directly. Instructor, I have a question about your practical exercise. Draven stared at her, then at Gorith, then at the other 4 cubs who had stopped their intimidation display and were now watching Riley with expressions of recognition. One of them, Mara, if he wasn't mistaken, was actually wagging her tail. These cubs are from a medical wing rotation, Riley continued, her tone professionally polite. Gorith is recovering from a training injury to his left hindquarter. Phoenix over there has dietary restrictions, and unless I'm mistaken, all 5 of them are supposed to be in their rest cycle right now. She lowered her hand, reaching out to scratch behind Gorith's ear ridge. The massive predator leaned into the touch, rumbling with contentment. So, my question is, did you get proper authorization from Commander Thex to interrupt their recovery schedule? The other 4 cubs had abandoned all pretense of aggression. They converged on Riley's position, competing for her attention like oversized puppies. Mara pushed her head under Riley's free hand. Phoenix settled at her feet with a contented sigh. Draven's carefully planned lesson had dissolved into something he couldn't quite process. His hostile test subjects were now a pile of docile cubs surrounding a human who barely reached their shoulders, all of them vying for her attention. That is, Draven stammered, his authority crumbling. The cubs were scheduled for her. For medical observation and rest, Riley interrupted gently, which I'm responsible for overseeing. She stood, and the cubs immediately formed a protective circle around her. I think we should return them to the medical wing before Commander Thex finds out you borrowed his warriors without permission. She walked toward the exit, 5 supposedly dangerous predators trailing behind her like devoted students. At the door, she paused and looked back at the stunned lecture hall. For future reference, she said to the class, the proper protocol for encountering Vraxian juveniles is to treat them with respect, speak calmly, and remember that they're intelligent beings, not wild animals. She smiled. Fear might keep you alive. Understanding keeps you safe. There's a difference. The cubs followed her out, leaving behind a lecture hall full of students who would never forget the day their xenobiology practical was dismantled by a 5'4" human doctor with nothing but a raised hand and the unwavering loyalty of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Draven stood at his podium, his lesson plan in ruins, watching the door swing shut. Perhaps, he thought distantly, He was teaching the wrong curriculum. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.